Wait, stop. That's the one. Welcome to ZEN TENN Speaks, a show where I make new friends and reconnect with old ones. A show where everyone's stories may inspire you to tell your own story. In this podcast, we encourage everyone to get rid of shame, guilt, fear, doubt, and judgments for themselves and for others, and replace those with love, empathy, compassion, understanding, kindness, and to do your best in everything that you do. In essence, to get rid of things that no longer serve your well-being. To be true to yourself and be honest with others. No need to be politically correct. That's out the window with 2020. Here, we tell the raw, uncensored story. Your story. And tell the truth as you see it. Make sure you live your fulfilled life without permission or apologies. So, if you have a juicy, interesting, raw, unapologetic story and inspiring, please make sure to contact me at zentenn21@gmail.com. It is ZENTENN21@gmail.com. Or you can find me on most social media platforms. You know it. The IG, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, OnlyFans. I mean, not really. But yes, OnlyFans. Just kidding. Not. As you may guessed it, my name is Zen, and welcome to the show. Today we have a guest. Our guest is Damon L. Jacobs. He is a leader and speaker, a psychotherapist and a licensed marriage and family therapist for 20 years. His practice is at 1133 Broadway at Flatiron District in New York City. So if you're in the area, make sure you visit him. And his website is damonljacobs.com. And we're going to have a link in the description below. Damon is also an author of 2 books. One of them is Absolute Should-Less, The Secret to Living the Stress-Free Life You Deserve. That's a great book. And the second one is Rational Relating and the Smart Way to Stay Sane in a Crazy World of Love. That sounds very juicy.
Very juicy. Hopefully fun. Hopefully something that gives people joy and juice and pleasure.
Yeah, the juice of life.
The juice of life.
Yes.
And so many.
Yes, definitely.
Other sweet things.
And you can find both books on his website as well as Amazon. Furthermore, Damon is a creator of the Prep Facts Rethinking HIV Prevention and Sex group on Facebook. We started in 2014? 2013. So I am honored to have the time to speak to Damon today, because that's how I met him, through that group.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was, well, at least for me, it was 2014. That's why I put it there.
Well, that was early.
Yeah.
You were definitely an early adopter.
Yeah, definitely. And Damon does a lot of fun things, and he's also the host of Tub Talks, which you can find on YouTube, as well as his blog page called The 50 Lessons of 50 Years.
50lessonsof50.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And you can subscribe to it, and that one is fun. I've been watching them, and it's so much fun to watch them. So I'm very honored, again, to be with you, and thank you for answering. It's like you message someone who's famous, and then you don't know if they're gonna...
Who's famous? In my own brain, I'm famous. As Coco once said on Fame, I'm already famous, just nobody knows it yet.
I love it.
Yeah. That's what about famous, TV show from a long time ago. Thank you, Terry. Thank you for reaching out, and it's so cool to talk with you.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, I know it's just confusing. My name is not Terry.
Oh, who the hell are you? Am I in the right apartment? Where am I? What would you like me to call you? Who are you?
sorry, I should have established that first. Okay, so Derek. Okay, so my legal government name is Hervey, Tennessee.
Okay.
And Derek and Hervey is a Facebook page me and my partner had for years, and I kept it. I know everyone called me Derek, and I went along with it because I was like, why? I call it. Tell them, but yeah.
Okay, so Hervey.
But I go by Zen.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay. Then that will be what it will be. Zen.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Zen. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for coming by. And you took all the trips to come here, so I appreciate that.
No problem.
So...
You know, it's a pleasure after this last 18 months to have somewhere to go, someone to see, and say, you know, let's do this in real life.
Yeah,
let's have a real conversation in the same room.
Definitely.
If I never have another Zoom conversation, it will be too soon.
It's funny, I'm new at Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please tell us a bit about who you are and what brings you joy.
Well, my name is Damon L. Jacobs. I always include the L because when I first started writing and first started public speaking, if you had Googled Damon Jacobs, there was a very different person who would come up in a Google search who did some not good things.
Oh.
And I said, well, I won't change my name, but I at least will put in the L and try not to be associated. And now if you do Damon Jacobs, I come up ahead of the other guy. So.
Oh, nice.
So, I am from Culver City, California, which is a little part of Los Angeles. And started even as a kid being interested in therapy. I was one of those weird kids that was just always studying adults. Not other kids. I really wasn't interested in kids, but I wanted to study adults, learn about human behavior, and try to use mental health to make the world a better place. And even as a kid, those were the values I held. And I thought, I went to college and I thought, okay, I don't want to be one of those people who never tries to do other things. So I tried to take classes in every other subject other than psychology, and everything brought me back to psychology. Yeah. The only thing that was even close was sociology, because sociology is the social construction of cultural norms and meanings. And I think cultural norms and meanings has so much to do with impacting mental health, especially when we're talking about homophobia and transphobia and racism and sexism and xenophobia. These are social constructions that harm people on the mental health side. Mm-hmm. So psychology and sociology have really always been my interest and my fascinations, and how that impacts sexual health and joy. Mm. And so what brings me joy, especially now, I just turned 50, and what brings me joy is to be able to sort of find the sweet spot, I say, between inner empowerment, having work and purpose in the world, as well as joy and fun in the sensational sexual space. And when one can balance those three poles, I think it's a really fun experience.
Right. So your work is fun.
I'd say my work is a lot of fun.
Yes.
Some people would say I'm a workaholic. I'd say, well, if it's not like I'm going to a factory making widgets. I do work that I fully enjoy, and there's many facets to it. There's the private psychotherapy practice, which is a lot more like being an introvert, right? Mm-hmm. Just very, very small, like more in that internal space. Then sometimes I get to do these kinds of interviews or do the Tub Talk series, which is a lot more about like being an extrovert, a lot more about the outer personality. Mm-hmm. And so it's just this, that to me is all fun stuff.
Right. Yes. When people ask me, what do I do for work?
Yeah.
I tell them I don't do anything that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed to be in New York City to do that. If I was in some back countryside, probably not.
Right.
But I'm here. There's endless possibilities. So why should I choose? What would I choose? Yeah. Something that's really unhappy.
Right.
And I'm very grateful, and I say blessed instead of lucky, because the least I'll make in New York City is $20K. Mm-hmm. And then I had no debt, and I was living an okay life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's key right there. No, is to know what are the sacrifices we make, and what are the means that we need to live. I think when we know we can follow a budget, that if we have a certain income and we can follow that budget, we can be in New York City. There's a lot of ways to do New York City that are pretty inexpensive, and I don't think people often realize that because they like watch Carrie Bradshaw or some bullshit like that. But there's so many ways to be in New York, and do fun, meaningful things and still keep to a budget. When you live here, you know the places to go, and you know the stores to shop at, and you know the places you can go that are going to be either really, really, like happy hours or free admission or places to go. Or lotteries for the Broadway shows. Yeah. But you have to actually live here and spend time here to figure that stuff out.
Right, yeah.
But I think, that to me is New York. So I have this theory about the difference between work and job. So I call work, with a capital W, is that thing that we're here to do. That thing, that passion for a lot of us that brings us to New York City, that I just got to do this thing. It's the thing you want to get up in the morning and do, and that you would do even if money wasn't an issue. Just that voice in you that's got to be spoken to. And then there's our job with a lowercase j, and sometimes that's the thing we do for money. It's a means to an end. It's the way that we get from surviving to thriving. Now, when we're really, really fortunate in life, there's an overlap between the work and the job. But sometimes there's not. And in New York, especially right now, with the economy and the arts in trouble, or, having not been used for so long, there's a lot of people for whom their work and their job are very separate. But what I try to help people do is see where or if there's that intersection. Do you have a job that allows you to channel that work energy? And if your job doesn't really do that, can you still bring that work energy? Right. For example, let's say you're an artist, you're an actor, but right now you have to work in a bank or a restaurant. Can you bring that creative spirit? Can you still be an artist even when you're working a job that doesn't necessarily reflect or represent your talent?
That's important. Wow, that's beautiful.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. And, because there's been many times I've had jobs that I didn't like very much.
Yes.
But someone told me early on, Damon, you don't have to love what you do, but you can bring love to what you do. And that was a really important shift for me in saying, okay, so I can do this job or use it for what I need it to do, making money, being a step in the career path that I want to be on, and eventually get to the place where I'd have more autonomy, which is where I'm at now.
Right. I could use that because what I've done is, I don't know if it's a hard way, I just choose what I like to do and stick to it. And let's say if I could not, then I could get a bank or whatever and then do it and then still bring the fun into that.
Yes.
Because I didn't feel like I was capable to do it because my peace of mind I prize it above shelter first, then peace of mind.
Right.
I think they're both the same because if I don't have shelter, it's a thing. So I prize peace of mind, and so I make sure to do work that I liked. And currently I do catering. It's not my passion, but I don't mind being there. Mm-hmm. So I love being there. And catering, like the restaurant industry, is very crazy. Mm-hmm. And everyone knows me. I'm the calm person who don't speak, who just do my job, and I do it anyway. Wow. And people watch. Wow. And so the people who I got bullied in the beginning, so now it stopped because I spoke up. Mm-hmm. Years later, I just watch. Like psychology, I just watch. There's a certain time and the perfect time to speak, kind of a thing, I feel, in situations. So people now, they notice that I still do a good job and I don't have to go and all crazy. Yeah. And so they're like, oh, I'm learning from you. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. I'm just being me. I wasn't doing anything. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, because I'm often smiling. Even partners like, are you angry at all? Even if I guess I'm angry, but I'm not, I'm smiling. I guess I have a smiley face. So they'll say, how are you often smiling? And I said, because first I choose, if I don't like something, I'll just have a goal. Let's say, okay, I have 4 months to do this, so I'm just going to do it, and then I'm going to get out. Yeah. But mostly I do things that I like only. Yeah. If I'm not happy, I get out. Even in relationships. Yeah. I get out, and people, it's tough because it's so personal, and people feel rejected or left behind, but I'm like, if I'm not happy, then that means you probably won't be happy either. Right. And we both need to be happy. So I'm very grateful to do that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think that's beautiful. And to me, it's an inside out process versus the other way around. I think a lot of things in our culture say you need to prioritize the outside in order for you to feel joy on the inside.
Right.
And for me, it's the opposite. My first priority is to calibrate this energy, do what I need to do to get my mind and my spirit correct.
Right.
And then go out into the world or go online or teach or say something or work in a way that reflects that inner balance. Thereby, it creates better externals. Thereby, my relationships, my jobs, my work, my friendships improve and become more quality. And that brings more joy. So it becomes a positive feedback loop.
Right.
And I think that's, again, goes against the grain of what we are often taught in American culture, which is like, things have to look a certain way. It is more important to look good than to feel good.
Right.
It is more important to follow certain standards or statuses. And if you're on social media, to present an image that looks good. Now, that's not unique to social media, by the way. I mean, that has always been, at least in my work, in my family background, we always had that, like, you have to look good. You have to appear a certain way, whether it reflects reality or not.
Right.
So I rebelled against that in many ways by becoming a therapist, saying, no, what to me is more important is the way I feel than the way things appear. But lo and behold, when we're really doing that work, the outside reflects that.
Right. Yes, definitely. So, why are you so brave?
I don't know. Thank you.
I mean, my perspective. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I'm brave. Okay, let me give myself credit, because I do think moving to New York City in 2005 without a job, without friends,
brave.
was brave. I will give myself that, because that was not easy to do, and I just wanted to do it. It's like I wanted to move to New York City, and I knew that I was getting older, and convenience was becoming more and more alluring. So I was 33 at the time, or 34, and it was like, okay, if I don't do it now, I don't know when I'm going to do it. So I thought that was brave, and I do think that was brave. But I don't really think about the stuff that I'm known, the prep stuff, the sexual health stuff. I don't necessarily think of that as brave. And here's why. I'm not putting myself down.
Sure.
I think some of that comes from great privilege. As a white person, I can I can be a therapist and be taken seriously as a therapist and still talk about sexual health and gay sex. I don't have to choose between one or the other, where some of my colleagues of color have to make that choice as it stands today. If they're explicit about sexual health, if they're naked in a bathtub, there might be professional consequences for them in the medical and political space. And I had a colleague who pointed this out to me yesterday, a colleague who appeared in the bathtub and did a wonderful show and now has told me I can't use it. He explained to me that there's some political things that might be coming up for him. And as a black man in America, he's not sure that would be used against him, but he can't take that chance. So it reminds me that I love what I do, but I don't think I'm necessarily brave for doing it. Because I don't think the stakes aren't that high for me. If people don't like what I'm doing, they won't watch it, or they'll call me horrible names on the internet, and that happens all the time. But I don't care. I mean, that to me is not a deal breaker. I don't really have professional, financial, or legal stakes in the game here to be able to talk explicitly about HIV prevention and anal sex. It's not a big deal. And I also think, and I think you'll understand, that when we're in touch with that spirit, that higher power, no matter what word we use for it, maybe some people call it God, maybe some people call it Allah, some people call it Gaga, or Cher, but whatever we call our higher spirit,
Madonna.
when we're on that path and we're walking with that energy, it's clear, right? It's really clear what to do when you know who you are and the energy you want to be in the world. So when I had this opportunity to be the first person to talk openly in the world about using PrEP to prevent HIV, that's pre-exposure prophylaxis, taking a daily pill to prevent HIV, which meant I could have receptive condomless sex with partners who I know who are HIV positive, or partners whose status I don't know. To be the first person to start talking about that in 2012 didn't feel brave to me. It felt consistent with the energy path that I had been building. It's like the universe would not be giving me the platform if I wasn't meant to use it. And it was kind of by lucky accident or unconscious intention that I had this opportunity to share this really valuable, life-changing
Yeah.
information with the world, and later on with 20,000 people in the Prep Facts group. So that to me was just consistent, having integrity with my relationship with my higher power.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel brave, it just felt right.
So you're just doing you, like
Just
they
being
say.
me.
You're right.
Just being me and not holding back.
Right.
I think I held back a lot when I was younger, when I was earlier in my career, when I didn't know who I was, when I didn't really have a relationship with a higher power. And, you know, I was starting off in the therapy world and facing discrimination as a gay man, and, you know, had to deal with all that shit. Oh, sorry. And again, now at this stage, just saying none of that really matters. What matters to me is being as honest and open and fact-based and compassionate I can be in alignment with my relationship with higher power. And if that means talking about receptive anal sex on, you know, MSNBC, so be it. I'm willing to do it.
It's part of humans.
That's what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so you're, like they said, a man ahead of his time, I would say.
Thank you.
Definitely, because 10 years ago, I've often thought myself and felt myself as someone who don't give a what.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I will hold back, I would say 30% of the 100.
Mm-hmm.
And as of 2020, I said I don't, what's that word? WTF.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I said if you like it, you don't.
Yeah.
That's fine too. I will survive.
Yeah.
In Boston, I made $17,000.
Wow.
And I was still, of course, I had a boyfriend too, which helped. Because I was like, we were living together. I saved 30 grand in 2.5 years to move to New York City. So I tell people, it's all your mindset. If you're thinking you cannot do it, you cannot do it. People say, don't move to New York. It's so crazy. It's dangerous. You can't survive. Look at me, 10 years.
Yeah.
And of course, now, as of last year, I was talking to my friend because of 2020 happened, and thank God for the stimulus and everything and unemployment. I don't think I would survive, but now hindsight, I see it now, and I'm saving for the future instead of just living life day by day, which I was doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
And saving for the future is definitely good. However, I don't want to do it at a cost at holding back my true self and thinking, what will someone think of me? Because I don't want to say I'm a nobody in a sense, but like compared to like, let's say famous people or whatever, I'm just like anyone else. So who cares if you don't like me? And you know what? I can do a job and still save money because I know how to save really deep.
Yeah.
I'm so, what's that called? Frugal.
Frugal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're smart.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know how to see these are the boundaries of what I can do, but still find joy and still live in New York City.
Right.
And take advantage of so many things we can do here, but live within your means.
Right. And and funny thing is, people who come here, they're like, this doesn't match because it looks extravagant here, but I live frugal.
It's beautiful. This space is beautiful. And we can create beauty anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. You can create beauty anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's very inspiring that you keep your integrity and do what you want and that's aligned with you. And that's one of my message as of like 2019. I want to inspire people to do what inspires them.
Yeah.
Because, and another theme too, I want to, and it was for me, as I said, I wanted to have a solo podcast. And I was thinking, I was just like, well, I can still be solo, but my life still involves other people. So my motto for 2020 was, and still this year, is no shame, no guilt, no judgments. There's something else. No shame.
And was it because of the pandemic that you were able to make that shift, or did the pandemic help?
Well, it wasn't because I'm glad the pandemic personally, I'm not, don't want to offend anybody, because I've said that online before. People got offended because they had things that happened for them.
Yeah.
But personally, 2020, because of the pandemic, everything else that happened was beside 2016, which everyone hated that year. That's funny. Every year people hate is my year. 2016 was a great year for me, and 2020 was the best year for me because I've grown in my brain, in my heart, and as a person.
Yes.
And I think maybe I had time to myself. I didn't have to go to work.
Yes.
I could meditate. I've done the most meditation ever, and going in through myself, learning about myself, and applying what I've been practicing in silent. And I'm glad that I applied it well and it overcame it, because there were so many things that happened last year with personal relationships. And of course, I'm like, as most people, have a mask online and preachy whatever, and I had to apply those things. And one of the things I had to apply was empathy. And I don't know about you or anyone else, but from what I see online or in the world, empathy is challenging. It's to be in someone else's shoe, like literally, and feel them. Like compassion for me is easy.
Yeah.
But empathy is like more deep in. Like being with them in the thick end of the troubles.
Yeah.
And so I had to apply that. Yeah.
So it's so okay. There's so much, and I love what you're saying. 2020 for many people was a very rewarding, meaningful year, and people are scared to talk about that online because it was so painful.
Right.
But as you know, in the bigger scheme of the universe, it is through pain that we often grow the most.
Right. Yes.
The Dalai Lama does talk very clearly about human beings learning more from pain than from joy. Not that we want to wish pain on ourselves or anybody else, but the truth is, we're going to go deeper with the learning and the growth and the lessons that we need to learn that will get us closer to an enlightenment through those painful experiences, that we must have those to contrast. That's what the yin-yang is all about, is that symbol of the contrast. So we have to have pain in order to really experience joy, and we have to be able to really cry in order to really laugh. And so I think for 2020, for many of us, it was a great contrast, but there was meaning in it, and there was learning to it. And even, and then aside from that, there's a lot of couples who I know who actually had a really wonderful time.
Interesting.
I know a couple who have been together for about 40 years, but they are a New York couple, and they're always busy, and they're always doing. And this was the first time in their 40-year relationship that they slowed down, and they could play, like during the day, they could just play Scrabble.
Nice.
And eventually decided to leave New York City and retire. But they never really knew, like, okay, we're always so busy, and they were always afraid to stop because of their careers.
Right.
And, like, if we're in our 70s, it's like, how much time do we have? Are we going to have quality time? But they never knew how to stop that train. Now they have retired, they are living really peacefully, and they consider 2020 to be a gift. It was like the stop that they needed to go into the quality time that they had wanted to have. So, and I know a lot of anecdotal stories like that. So it's important we talk about that.
Yes.
It's important we respect it.
Right, yes, definitely. And another thing with the talking about things, especially in the last maybe 6 years, I've noticed that started 2016 because of the election, about talking about things will upset people, so people don't talk about things. And so I got into the what word could I use? Can't think of the word. I fell into the trap of, like, if I talk about things, it's gonna be a fight, and we fighting. But that's not me in my core. And I'm like, no, I didn't need to fight. So now if I talk about something, someone has something to say, I hear them out. And applying the empathy.
Love that.
And then I can still hear them out. And hopefully it doesn't happen, kind of unfortunately, but I'm fine with that. It doesn't happen on my end where they understand, but I'm come to a place where it's okay. You don't have to give me empathy back because I get it. It's okay. But for me, it's important for me to hear you and validate you and apply empathy to see where you're coming from, because I love that. I love what's the point of having a stagnant one-person thought in my head and think I'm the universe? It's so silly. There's 7 billion and more people in the world.
Yes.
So...
And the world needs that empathy.
Yeah.
More so perhaps now than ever before. I mean, I've never seen... I'm 50, and I know everyone sometimes says, well, the world's a mess. Because people have always said it my whole life. I think American democracy is more endangered now than it's been historically. And if we don't show compassion, if we don't show empathy, if we don't have conversations with people who think and vote differently than ourselves, I don't think this American democracy will make it through the rest of my life. And I've never really honestly believe that was the case
Let's
before.
hope not.
But I mean, we're really close. I mean...
Yeah. Well, you're probably more into the politic realm more than I am, probably. So you know more. But I was talking to some guy from the Midwest, and he was telling me how things are different in New York, etc., etc. And then he mentioned something which I align with. He says, we need to forget the left and the right. We need to be in the middle and see our neighbors as ourselves, as someone else who's a human being, and do what is good for the whole country. Because... And I'm like, oh my God, someone's talking through my mouth. Because why... It's like... It's the same in a relationship. Or even in this place. I've been here in this place for 8 years. And in the past 5 years... Because I moved here with a boyfriend. And we wanted to create a space. And then when we broke up and he moved out. And then I had to like test people moving in. So it was like pretty rocky and testy. And then in the past 5 years, like I got it right. And then when I live in this place, people coming in, I tell them, yeah, I live in this place. It's like you see me as a... I don't think they can sort of notice, unsee me in a leader's eye. But at the same time, I make sure I lead with good examples. And I'm on their level. I'm not above them. I'm not below them. They're not below me. I go by the same rules. And... When we talk, let's say if we have differences, I said, how can we make this work for us? Instead of, this is my house, my rules kind of a thing. And even if I feel that and I feel good at the moment, it's just ego. And I don't want to feel that. And I want them to feel welcome. I had people living here for years. And because of the pandemic, we had a lot of moving in, moving out. And one person, he's going to go in 2 years. And... I love them all. And I tell them. And I'm not afraid or ashamed to tell them either. I was like, even if they're new, I'm like, I love you. And I know, I know. Because a lot of people are like, you don't know me, why you love me? And I said, exactly, that's why I love you.
If I knew you, I wouldn't love you. Once I get to know you, don't worry. Once I get to know you, I will love you. Let's just go with the honeymoon.
Don't worry.
Let's go with the honeymoon phase.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
No, but it's sort of like... innocent till proven guilty. Like, I will see you for who you are unless you show me different.
But even then, I had a terrible... Okay, so, forgive me. I do my best to not call people names. And I don't want to see them as terrible. Empathy again. So, it was challenging, and I don't think I would have him in the house again. And I think he was battling a lot of mental stuff. And it wasn't great for the place, so I had to ask him to leave. But even him, I don't have any hate for him. Because, I don't know if you read that book, The Four Agreements.
Yes.
Don't take things personally.
My foundation,
Yes. And I had to practice that, keep practicing that. And having roommates, I know a lot of people say, I don't have roommates, da 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 da. As I get older, I say that not because I don't like them. It's because I think I'm ready to have my own space. That's different. And so, having them, they're my teachers. What a better person to learn from someone, or even anything, as you said, 2020, something that gives you growth.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I would say the people in my life, the roommates I had in the past, the men I had been with who... I experienced a great amount of pain with, have been some of the greatest teachers in my life. And I just actually wrote a series called The 50 Lessons of 50.com. 50 things I learned when I turned 50 that has really helped me to have the kind of joy and just like silliness that I have today. And part of it was kind of acknowledging the people who had harmed me, either directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally, because I learned from them.
Yes.
I understood more things about myself and who I wanted to be and who I didn't want to be because of them. And I try not to foster relationships with people that are capable of abuse and harm. But when I was younger, I didn't know how to do that. And so I just tried to learn from them.
And it happens sometimes. You meet someone. I actually had a conversation earlier, and he made an example how there are two fish that goes in another fish's mouth and eat the food and come out. And there's another fish that goes in and mimics it just so he could enter the belly of the other fish, just so he could eat the fish inside out.
Wow.
And that's
that's a lot.
And that's a narcissist.
Yeah.
And I recently, as in August, and that's one of the reasons I started heart pain. A heartache makes you sing. And so that's the reason I started singing, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have the podcast, because I am done with bullshit.
Yes.
Bullshitting myself.
Yes.
I'm done shaming myself. I'm done guilting myself. I'm done judging myself.
Good.
And I'm done doing it to others, because if you can't love yourself, you can't love anyone else.
Exactly.
So since I'm able to not do those things to myself anymore, and I see other people in a different light, even people, because I post certain things and it doesn't align to them. Oh my God, funny thing is, you probably also saw that quote that says, how to end an argument. Say you're right. I mean, it's a great strategy.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. And funny thing is, when I apply empathy, oh my God, people come around.
Yeah.
They apologize to me.
Yeah.
And then they want to be friends.
So I found that a lot when the early days of talking about PrEP as well, using Facebook, which is great in some ways, limited in others, but really engaging in those conversations exactly that way. It's like, okay, if someone's going to come on here and try to debate me about PrEP, bring it on. But the first thing I'm going to, my work, first thing with a capital W, is to say, okay, this is a human being. I'm going to have the faith that they're authentically asking questions because they truly do want information.
Right.
They're going to challenge me, not because they're challenging me, because I don't take it personally.
Right.
But because they have been conditioned to be suspicious or mistrusting of healthcare professionals, which makes a lot of sense. I have too. So I'm in the line of fire. That's okay. But if I apply that empathy and respect and integrity to their challenge or to their question, more often than not, we can come to an understanding and a respect. Not always, but a lot of times, yes. And then eventually they will friend me on Facebook or say thank you. Or years later, they're going to be like, hey, I just had great sex and I thought of you. That's like, okay. That's like, that's great. That's, but it takes that extra step mentally to be able to not react to the ego-based attack.
Yes.
And that is going to be a lifelong process for me, I think, for all of us to say, when someone's getting up in your face, even if it's electronically, and they're trying to challenge you and be difficult, how do we not meet attack with attack? Right. How can we meet attack with love? And if not love, how can we meet attack with respect?
Right.
I'm not perfect at this, but it's certainly fine that if I can do that, if I can get there, the outcome is really different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, even if you don't know what happened after you done it, I don't like saying I'm pretty sure and I'm not sure, but the exception for this one. I'm pretty sure even if you're not around, even if it's not your situation, they might come to someone else, and then yours, what you did, the empathy you gave them was a seed for them to see it later on, and it will catch on. Yes. Because as you said, years later, because I used to do customer service, which I'm great for, but I hated it not because of the customer, because of management. Yeah. Because I'm fine with customer and I know how to talk to people. And this lady gave me a hard time, and I treated her so well. She came back days later, crying, asking for apologies. At first, I forgot about it. And then when she mentioned it again, I was like, oh, okay. And to me, it was so regular. Yeah. I was just like, oh, let me be strategizing, da-da-da-da. but then I guess because of my practice, like practice make perfect, because of my practice, it became like a regular thing. And so it reminds me to keep doing it, because how you respond to people, even if you're not thinking about it, can create a big impact for them.
Right.
Because first of all, she's brave to come back. Because some people will be like, what happened? Okay, forget it. I'll learn whatever. And that's fine too. She came back and she has integrity, or let go of her ego to do that.
Yeah.
And it also tells me, oh, I'm doing something right here.
Yeah.
And those feedbacks help. So when I'm a customer myself, also reminds me to, regardless what the cashier does, to go like, that's another human being that I don't know what they're going through, and it's okay. It's not the biggest. I guess it depends what it is, maybe, but until I'm there, I cannot tell. But from my experience, nothing a cashier or anyone has done is big enough for me to be like, I want to see your managers to get you fired. Like, I can not come back, or few times that happened in Home Depot, I would either ask, how are you? Are you okay? And then if they're like, oh, I'm good, whatever, and I said, oh, I've noticed you tense our interaction, and and then we end up kicking in the cash register.
Wow.
Because I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna take this personally. I'm gonna like ask someone whatever.
Yeah.
And this is why I feel like 100% it works, even if you leave and you don't know, because you never know what that person's gonna take with them.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
For about 10 years of my career, I was working in clinics or agencies that were called dual diagnosis, meaning it was a both mental health and drug problem that was being treated. And when you're working in that environment, quite often you're subjected on both sides. The politics of the supervisors, which can be difficult. Mm-hmm. But then you often have clients who are going through withdrawal, who are off their medications, who haven't taken their bipolar medications, and they're coming down a 3-day binge from crystal meth. And you're in the way at that moment. And as you know, if I was going to do the work and the job, I really had to learn how to deal with that energy of someone being really intensely angry at you.
Yes.
And to practice the 4 agreements and not take that seriously, and to really bring kindness to attack. Mm-hmm. You know, one of my important phrases that has helped me through life is that attack is a cry for help.
Yes,
that when someone is attacking, it's because they're in pain.
Yes.
And if you can at least be present with that, even if you don't speak to it, if you can just be present with that and hold that energy, a lot of times the next steps proceed differently. Mm-hmm. Now that takes, for me anyway, that's taken a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. It's kind of like any muscle in your body. You really have to work it out a lot.
Especially working there, because it's constant.
Right. Now, I think when you're doing it every day, it almost gets easier. Because it's like a muscle. And like, okay, you're yelling at me in my face. I'm going to like zone out for 30 seconds. Then I'll be back. And like, okay, so how can we go forward?
Yes.
But that was one of the gifts that I had of working in some very difficult environments early on, was seeing how empathy, how not taking things personally, how seeing the light in someone, even when their behavior betrays that.
Yes.
How different the conversation and the resolution can look if we can get there together. And all it takes is one person in a dispute to get there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It doesn't, you know, so, and it's not saying that always went perfectly.
Right, of course.
But a lot of times it did. A lot of things got de-escalated and worked through. If I could maintain that you are a person who's yelling at me and I see your pain and I respect your pain and I'm with you. I may not agree with you, but I'm with you on this journey, and let's see what we can figure out together.
Right. I've told people that in relationships, I tend to be a strong person, but I tell my partner, if I'm weak at that time, and then you need to be strong for me, or else it's going to be that. But at the end of it, when it all calm down, I'm going to be strong, and I will come back to apologize and talk it out on my calmer side, etc. Because I don't have shame with that, because I can do that easily. However, when you're in the thick of it, and if I'm not strong at that moment, then and you're not strong either, then we're just gonna be two weak links gonna fight at each other. But if I'm strong, I tend to like hold it and hold that integrity because I don't remember who said that. Oh yeah, so my guru, Sadhguru, they ask him, do you ever get mad? And he says he doesn't give anyone that privilege to make him feel mad. And I was like, oh my God, like he's speaking through my mouth, because when I know who I am, I stand strong in that.
Yeah.
And now, like before, empathy was not my strong suit. Like I would have compassion, like understanding, etc. But I could. When did I feel? I can't. Usually, I have a timeline where I feel something. Maybe that will come up, but I don't remember when it clicked for me to apply empathy. But I totally do. And last year, because of the narcissist relationship I had with somebody, it came in very handy, and I applied the empathy there.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I did, because I saw things different light, and I discovered things that came up for me, traumas. I read a meme that says relationships will bring up traumas that you refuse to look at when you're a kid. So that brought up some things because of how I don't want to, it's not a blaming thing, just like a factual, how he treated me. And so instead of taking it like, oh, poor me, how dare you did this to me, I saw it as a gift, because what happened to me, I loved it so much, which is funny, and I don't, maybe someone else can resonate with this, but most people I talk to, they're like, oh, you crazy. I love the experience, and I love him more for it. Because I didn't take it like, you did this to me, and I'm like broken. Of course I was broken because of the rejection. And I was broken. I was first time ever I can ever remember that I was depressed in my life because of that too. But I don't blame him for it, because actually, funny thing is, prior to this interview, I had a interview with a hypnotherapist, and he was saying how some people blame themselves for something that happened. And I had to clarify, when something happened, it's not that I blame myself, I take responsibility for my part of it. Like the depression, me personally, and I've mentioned things like that on Facebook, people get really offended, but I don't know if they don't understand that I'm talking about myself. My depression, I know why it happened, and I know I kept myself in that. Because I took myself out of it too. And I know the reason. And some people, their depression is their prerogative. Because that's one topic, like my body, my choice, or whatever women things. Those topics I don't want to really talk about them or have my opinion, because I'm not, it's not my body. I'm not in that sphere. Same with depression, because everyone have it for their own reason, and they know why, or they know their own body, etc. And it was my first time. It lasted a whole year, and it was really like, it was like, WTF? What is this? What is this? And I was like, oh, that's depression. Now I know what people feel.
It's heavy.
Because I didn't know what they felt like. When people talk about depression, I was like, okay. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you don't
until
understand that until you've been through that. And then you have greater empathy.
Yes.
Because you have much more insight into that experience.
Yes.
You know, and that's part of learning through growth. And, I mean, again, I completely have exactly the same take on abusive relationships, because I used to actively engage in emotionally, and the last one was a physically abusive. But I was there. The common denominator is that I participated. And it was after one of them became physical that I started to seriously ask that question. I can't keep blaming other people for something that keeps happening. I have to look at my 50% of my participation if it's ever going to stop. And that was when I was 28. And finally started being able to shift that and build relationships that were healthier because of that work. Because of that willingness to say, I am engaging in an energy that's harmful. And really get into deeper with the help of a therapist as to why I was doing that. what from my past and my childhood was leading me to engage with adults in an abusive way, and then to start to have the agency and decision to change that.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important. I've noticed people get offended with the word self-accountability.
Yeah, now that is...
Do you find the same?
I think when we conflate that with blame, then it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about
Right.
actually is conducive to agency and
Yeah.
empowerment.
Yeah.
I talk very much in both my books and all of my work about responsibility. That when there is a pattern here, if I'm engaging in a pattern of relationships where I'm being treated badly, I need to take responsibility for my part of that. Or if not, then just keep repeating it over and over again, blaming other people when I'm participating.
Right, people see it as blame. And maybe it's that I haven't conveyed it in a perfect way as you mentioned. Have you stated it? But online, people are like, blame me, what fault? I'm like, oh, that's not what I'm trying to say. Right. And yeah, and it works. Again, my guru says, talk about things that you know, as in what you've gone through. Mm-hmm. So I've gone through it, and I'm speaking about it. And of course, they respond based on what they experience themselves as well. And I totally respect that and understand. And until I take full accountability for what I put in, then that's how I started to grow and changing my own patterns, because